May I talk about some books that I've read in the past month? Hello and welcome to Creatively Torn, a channel where I mostly talk about books but sometimes don't. This is yet another monthly wrap-up, this time for the transition from April to May. Does that make it the April monthly wrap-up or the May monthly wrap-up? These are questions that should be answered, but they won't be. I'm just going to go right into it. I read 5 books. Yes, I read 5 books last month in April. I'm currently reading 1, and I have 6 on the agenda for May. So, let us begin. I have to say that April was not the most productive month, but also was not the least productive month that I've had lately. The first 2 weeks, I was basically hampered by 2 large books I was trying to finish. I just never could seem to find the end to. So I'll get into those shortly. But that really hampered down my schedule. So it's a miracle I cranked out 3 books after that. But I did, so I think it's a fairly good month for me. I'm hoping to get a little more done in May, but we shall see. But enough beating around the bush, let's go back and talk about those books that I read. The first one that I finished is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, the conclusion to Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. I did not love. Yeah, I just didn't like Mistborn all that much. The writing style, the characters, the world just did not engage me. The dialogue, the plots, the structures of the books, none of them really worked for me, to be honest. They took me longer to read than they should have, as they're quite light despite being fairly long. I don't know. I gave this one 3 out of 5, which if I had to rate the trilogy, I would probably give that a 3 out of 5 as well. I didn't particularly like it, but I didn't particularly hate it either, so it's somewhere in the middle. I know other people really like the series though, so more power to them. But it's not for me, and I won't be doing any more Mistborn books. I do want to try the Stormlight Archive at some point, but probably not until next year at the earliest. Anything else by Sanderson I'm not sure about yet, to be honest. And certainly not in the near future. So that was the first one that was dragging me down. The second one is the Tommyknockers. This is a very long book, a very average book, to be honest. When you cut away all the unnecessary stuff, the main story, the main characters, and the main plot, they're okay. They're nothing special. But there's just so much extra nonsense in there. There's like 200 or 300 pages in the middle that just did not need to be in the book at all. And some of it is entertaining, I'll be honest. So I was getting by for a while just on your entertainment factor. But there came a point where it just became a mess. And so it took me quite a while to finish this one. I gave this one, I think, a 3 out of 5. I don't know. If you want to read it, you can. I don't recommend it to casual readers. I think if you're well aware of Stephen King's strengths and weaknesses, and you want to give it a chance, and go ahead. If you're new to his style, then absolutely do not read this, because you will hate it, and you will never pick up another Stephen King book in your life. That's that. So those are the 2 books that took me like 3 weeks to read. But then I finally finished those. And after that, I read a short book. This is a children's book called A Taste of Blackberries that I recently bought. Like I said, it's a kid's book. One that I read when I was a kid for the first time. When I was experiencing some grief issues, and so this book deals with grief and loss in a very good way, a very healthy way, and so it was a very cathartic read. when I first read it, and I just picked it up again and read it again. It's very good. It really holds up. It's a really good book about the grieving process. So if you have a chance to pick this up for either for you or if you have kids or if you know kids, I do recommend giving it a chance. It's a very short read. It took me like an hour at most. So I do recommend giving that one a chance. I gave that one a 5-star rating. What else do we have here? Next up, I read The Way of Edan by Phillip Chase, a newly released fantasy debut, self-published fantasy debut, first of a trilogy, which will all be released this year. So I picked this one up, read it in about a week. It's a very good book, very, very expertly written. It's very much a classic fantasy story, but a little more modern in scope. Very, very readable, very fun to read. Some interesting characters, interesting character dynamics, different magical powers and things like that. Lots of in-world religion that is used very well. The prose is really well done. I really enjoyed the writing style. And The Way of Edan had some unexpected bloodshed in some areas, which is always good. But for the most part, it's a very lighthearted read. Maybe not lighthearted, but more of a lighter in tone. Anyways, this is a good book. I gave it like a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5. One of the two, I don't know. Doesn't really matter all that much. And then the last book that I read in April is the second book of the Red Rising original trilogy, Golden Sun, which I just finished last night. So should give you a good guess as to when I record this video. Anyways, Golden Sun was very good. I liked it more than the first book, which I did like as well. I know a lot of people say there's a big difference between the two. I didn't get that all that much. I liked them both. But the second one is better. Very fast paced. It's got a lot of twists and turns. Lots of really good action scenes. Just a really cool book. Really fun book. We'll be reading book 3 in the trilogy very soon. And then I'm just moving on to the next section, aren't I? So let's go ahead and get into... No, wait. I'm forgetting one important thing. Book of the month. The book of the month for this month is The Way of Edan. I liked it a little more than Golden Sun. It was a really close race though. But just the writing style of The Way of Edan and the classical fantasy setup with a few twists and turns here and there. It's just a really fun read, one that I'm looking forward to getting into the sequels for. So that is the book of the month. The only thing I'm currently reading is The October Country by Ray Bradbury, which is a book of short stories. So I've been just reading that leisurely when I get a chance. I'm not too concerned about finishing it anytime soon. As a whole, it's got its highs and lows. I've had some really good short stories in there and some really forgettable ones so far. So we'll see how this pans out. I'm about halfway through, so we'll see how the second half of the book goes. That's all I have open right now. So getting into what I will be reading in May. The first one is going to be The Sea Wolf by Jack London, which I'll be reading for a read-along in May. I do quite like Jack London. Of the 2 books of his I've read so far. I don't think I need to tell you about White Fang anymore. I did like Call of the Wild as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how much I enjoy something from a human perspective this time. So I'll be starting that probably tonight. And then I may wait a few days, or I may start the next one fairly soon, depending on how that one goes. The next one's going to be Morning Star, which is the 3rd book in Red Rising trilogy. I picked that up from the library today, so I should be able to read that whenever I want to. I'd like to get that finished up. Then I can move on to the sequel series, starting later in the month with Iron Gold. So if I have a few weeks in there in between, that would be a good thing for me. So moving on into the books I'll be filling in that time with. The first one will be Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This is one of the classic books I've been putting off for a few months now. I think it's about time for me to get that one going. After that, it's going to be a short story, or a shorter story, called The Traveling Cat Chronicles. This is by a Japanese author whose name I don't remember and probably would not pronounce correctly anyways, so I will just not say it. But I will be reading that sometime this month as well. And then after that is going to be a short story, one by Leo Tolstoy. It's be the death of Ivan Ilyich, or something like that. This is going to be my first story by Tolstoy, as I gear up for a read of Anna Karenina in December, and then for War and Peace sometime in 2024. So I want to get into this short story of his, maybe a few others before then, just to get a better taste of his writing style. So I should be able to get to that sometime this month. And then the other one that I have planned is Iron Gold, like I mentioned. If I do have time after that, I'll have to wing it. But I don't think that I will. That's 6 books there, even though one is a short story and one is a fairly short book as well. I think that's a pretty full plate for what I can get done. But anyways, that has been my wrap up for the month of April and my TBR for May of 2023. If you want to follow along with my reading schedule, you can follow me, friend me on Goodreads or Storygraph. I occasionally post things on Instagram as well. That's about it really, so that's all I've got for you today. Thank you again for watching. And what is that? Okay. Later in the month? No. But I think it's time to get that one opened up and processed and rolled out to the public. Again, I'm just making shit up as I go. But hi, Sega. Say hi. Finish up. That's about it, really. What am I doing?